and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
Good day with your major newscast. I am Jessica Daw. First with the highlights. The government and the opposition disagree over the benefits of importing older reconditioned vehicles and used tires. In the region, a Venezuelan baby has died after Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard fired at an illegal boat that was ferrying migrants. And internationally, the French president is traveling to Moscow to meet his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. The details of these stories and more in just a moment.
Advertise with us on News Talk Radio Guyana 103.1 FM for best coverage on programs on motivation, beauty and health, parenting and relationships, knowing your rights, and a variety of enlightening content, and get value for your money. Call our helpful staff today on 223-1056 or 223-1041 today.
Now for the news in detail. The government and the opposition are at odds over whether it is wise to import older reconditioned vehicles and used tires. Since returning to office in August 2020, the People's Progressive Party Civic PPPC has scrapped the ban on used tires and removed the 8-year age limit on used and reconditioned vehicles. Minister of Governance and Parliamentary Affairs Gil Teixeira says these measures have since allowed more Guyanese to once again own their own vehicles.
Minister of Finance and this government restored the taxes of the 2006-2008. Let us look at what's happened. PAB series was finished in 7 months.
Wow.
Following. 7 months! That 9,999 cars were sold in 7 months, bought in 7 months. By the removal of the APNU stranglehold by tax on people. And now we're starting PAC in 7 months. If that is not an indicator, social and economic indicator of this breathing of freedom to do things, that you held us down like if you're suffocating the people in this country all in 5 years.
While in government, the coalition of a Partnership for National Unity plus Alliance for Change, APNU plus AFC, had restricted the importation of used or reconditioned vehicles over 8 years old from the date of manufacture to the date of importation. The then administration had justified this on the grounds of road safety and reducing carbon emission. Former opposition leader Joseph Harmon still believes that these are better policies.
When we were in office, that is the AP and AFC, we placed restrictions on the importation of used tires and aged vehicles in order to protect our environment and to save lives. We implemented measures for the easy importation of electric vehicles and setting up of charging stations. Our administration was forward thinking. Mr. Speaker, it appeared as though we were too forward thinking for the PPP, who decided to reverse our tires and vehicle policy. And now in budget 2022, they are offering tax measures to benefit the importation of vehicles for industrial and commercial purposes.
Former leader of the opposition, Joseph Harmon. There will be no Mashramani costume and float parade again this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This is according to Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport Charles Ramson.
We're still in the pandemic, and that's one of the reasons why we don't have the regular Mashramani. It would be irresponsible for us as a government to put on the regular mash routine that we did prior to the pandemic, which was in 2020, the last time when we had any kind of major Mashramani activities.
However, the Culture, Youth and Sport Minister says song competitions will be held for Mashramani.
The main preparation at the moment is for the song competitions. That's the only thing that we can do en masse in a safe way. We can still do that. It will still give the young people who are involved in, and the artists who are involved in our cultural events, the opportunity to advance be motivated to advance their craft, their art form.
Mr. Ramson says he will be meeting with costume makers to explore ways of having some costume activities for Mashramani 2022. An 89-year-old woman from Region 4 is Guyana's latest recorded COVID victim. The Ministry of Health says that the death toll from the virus now totals 1,181 persons. At the moment, the number of active cases is 5,659. Of that number, 15 are receiving intensive care, 5,540 others are isolated at home to avoid spreading the virus, and 119 are hospitalized. A 23-year-old man died on the Laluni Access Road, Linden-Susdike Highway after the motorcycle he was riding went into a pothole. Police say that at about 10:30 Saturday night, Dave Taylor of Laluni Creek was riding a motorcycle along with pillion rider Vishal Bahadur. So far, investigators were informed that Taylor lost control of the speeding motorcycle when he struck a pothole with water. Taylor and Bahadur were taken to the Diamond Diagnostic Center, where Taylor was pronounced dead on arrival. Mr. Bahadur was seen and examined and referred to the Georgetown Hospital, where he was treated and admitted a patient for observation. Now for the news in the region. A baby died in her mother's arms after the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard fired on a boat carrying migrants from Venezuela. The Caribbean nation's Coast Guard says its ship, TTS Scarborough, attempted to intercept a boat that illegally entered the country's territorial waters from Venezuela on Saturday at little before midnight. The ship hailed the other vessel to make it stop and fired warning shots when it did not, but that also proved futile. According to the Coast Guard, the unknown vessel continued with aggressive maneuvers, first coming into contact with the ship's boat and then making attempts to ram it. The statement said the Coast Guard personnel feared for their lives and fired on the engines of the boat to shut them down. In the end, a woman was bleeding and her baby was taken to a hospital where it was pronounced dead. Human rights activist Orlando Moreno says the boat carrying the migrants had departed Saturday night from the eastern Venezuelan state of Delta Amacuro, where an estimated 6 to 10 boats carrying migrants leave daily. Prime Minister Gaston Brown has told the opposition United Progressive Party that his son's wealth is not his own. Antigua Newsroom reports that Mr. Brown says the opposition is constantly making his success as a businessman an issue on the political campaign. He says that several years ago he had purchased 4 acres of land while he had been in opposition, constructed a mall, and transferred the property to his son. Part of the building is being rented to the government. However, the Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister says nothing is wrong with his son earning government money from the property.
And if my son get a little $30,000-$40,000 a month, is that a problem? All kind of people rent to government, all kind of people have contracts with government. I mean, the government rents about, $50-something million between the public, the central government and statutory organizations pay out nearly $50 million a month in rent. And if they're renting a property for my son and he gets $30,000-$40,000 a month, what is so vulgar about that?
Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown. And lastly in the region, a female constable is in custody in the United States on allegations of being the mastermind of a lottery scamming group operating in Jamaica and America. Sheila Shireen Allen was arrested on Friday. The group is being accused of defrauding over 20 elderly Americans of approximately $1.6 million. It is being alleged that over $128,000 of the sum was directly sent to the policewoman's account. An indictment obtained by the Gleaner indicated that Allen and other known and unknown persons conspired to commit fraud by wire and conspiracy to commit fraud by mail in violation of U.S. law. The Gleaner understands that Allen was arrested by investigators of the Border Control and Protection Division and that she had been under observation since 2019. Investigators say the policewoman conspired with others to devise and carry out a telemarketing and mass marketing scheme that targeted vulnerable victims in order to defraud and to obtain money by means of materially false and fraudulent pretenses, representations, and promises. Additionally, it is further alleged that records indicate that there were 24 purchases at various retailers in Florida for a total amount of $2,440 and 43 cents. It is also being alleged that the amount withdrawn from the account from these transactions was more than $5,004 and 1 cent. The Gleaner understands that law enforcement has identified 6 alleged co-conspirators said to be part of Allen's scheme. And that was your regional news. Here now is your international news coming from the BBC.
Harper with the BBC News. The Israeli government has announced an independent inquiry into allegations that police illicitly used spyware against aides of the former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other public figures. The Internal Security Minister Omer Bar-Lev said a state commission would be created to look into the allegations published by an Israeli newspaper. Lipika Pelham reports.
The Israeli business newspaper Kalkalist published a list of citizens, including ministers, journalists, mayors and activists. It said no one was immune, not even the former Prime Minister's relatives, whose phones were hacked by the Israeli police. Pegasus is considered as one of the most powerful cyber surveillance tools in the world, giving operators full control of a target's phone. International investigations have found that Pegasus software has been bought by many governments to spy on their critics.
The French President Emmanuel Macron is due to begin talks in Moscow shortly with Russia's President Putin in the latest move to try to de-escalate the crisis over Ukraine. Before leaving Paris, Mr. Macron said it was legitimate for Russia to raise its security concerns, but added that Ukraine's own security could not be compromised. From Moscow, here's Caroline Davis.
Diplomatic efforts are really stepping up yet again here to try and avert any situation from escalating further in Ukraine. Now, in terms of what the Kremlin is saying about this particular visit, is that it is very important, and they expect the talks between President Macron and President Putin to be both substantial and lengthy. But they're not suggesting at the moment that they anticipate that there should be some form of breakthrough in the course of just one meeting. They've said that it is a complicated situation.
Western allies are continuing efforts to demonstrate solidarity with Ukraine and coordinate a response were Russia to invade, something Moscow denies planning. Our diplomatic correspondent Paul Adams is in the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv.
Before December, I would say, Kiev was hardly on the diplomatic trail, but what a difference the last few weeks have made. Boris Johnson, Britain's Prime Minister, was here last week. Emmanuel Macron, when he arrives here tomorrow, will be the first French president to visit Ukraine in 24 years. There are currently 4 European foreign ministers in town, with others planning to come later in the week. It's almost as if, as we reach this moment of maximum danger, with American officials still talking about mid-February as the moment at which Russia might be capable of launching some kind of invasion, that Western officials and leaders are forming a kind of diplomatic human shield.
The head of the European Commission has said there are increasing signs that Russia is continuing to use gas supplies as a means of exerting political pressure. Ursula von der Leyen's remarks follow a decision by the Russian state-controlled energy giant Gazprom not to book extra capacity on a key pipeline that supplies Europe. She said it was a very strange way of conducting business, given huge demand and record prices. World news from the BBC. An inquiry into last year's deadly riots in South Africa has found there were serious failures in the police response. The report said the security services failed to anticipate, prevent or disrupt the violence sparked by the jailing of former President Jacob Zuma. The Kenyan authorities say 90% of a fire that engulfed Aberdare Game Reserve has been contained. More than 600 hectares of forest were destroyed in the 3-day inferno. The mountainous park is home to leopards, elephants and critically endangered black rhinos. Emmanuel Igunza says the fire has had devastating effects.
The problem with these fires that have been going on in the Aberdares is that they do tend to contaminate water points, and therefore people downstream will not be getting clean water. So this is quite a big concern. And also for tourism, it's a big blow, because now this will mean that part of the forest is shut down before assessment is done, and then there will be the process of trying to reforest the area. So it's quite a big blow to the country, particularly during this time of COVID, when tourism was just starting to pick up.
Hundreds of people in Morocco have attended the funeral of the 5-year-old boy who spent 5 days trapped in a well and died, despite a massive rescue effort that gripped the world. Rayyan was pulled from the 30-metre deep well on Saturday. The funeral ceremony was held near the boy's home village. A Taliban official says at least 19 people have been killed in an avalanche at a remote mountain pass between Afghanistan and Pakistan. He said rescue workers in eastern Kunar province were still searching at the scene. At the Winter Olympics in Beijing, the Dutch speed skater Irene Wust has become the first person to win individual gold at 5 different Winter Games by retaining her 1500 metres title. It was the 6th Olympic gold of her career. The men's downhill was won by the Swiss skier Beat Feutz. That's the latest. BBC News.
And that was your international news from the BBC. Here now is a recap of the highlights. The government and the opposition disagree over the benefits of importing older reconditioned vehicles and used tires. In the region, a Venezuelan baby has died after Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard fired at an illegal boat that was ferrying migrants. And internationally, French president is traveling to Moscow to meet his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. And that was your international news. Sorry, that was your major newscast. I am Jessica Daw.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.